Have you ever noticed that debt doesn't just steal your money, it robs your peace of mind and your freedom? What if I told you that Proverbs described this thousands of years ago and Napoleon Hill confirmed it with his philosophy of success? Picture this for a moment. Every night while you sleep, a silent thief enters your home. He doesn't take jewelry or electronics. This invisible criminal steals something far more valuable: hours of your life, days of tranquility, years of opportunity. His name is debt, and he operates with the precision of a Swiss watchmaker and the cruelty of a medieval tyrant. This nocturnal burglar doesn't use lockpicks to open doors. His primary tool is a simple plastic card. With every thoughtless transaction you make, with every pay later you whisper, you hand him the keys to your future. And when you wake each morning, you discover that something fundamental has vanished: your freedom of choice. Modern chains aren't forged from iron. They're credit lines, personal loans, installment financing that spread like spiderwebs throughout your life. Each month, these invisible shackles grow slightly heavier, slightly more restrictive, until one day you awaken to find you no longer decide where to work, where to live, or even what to eat. Debt has made those decisions for you. Proverbs 23 verse 7 expressed this with sword-sharp clarity. The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. 3,000 years ago, this ancient wisdom already warned about the modern slavery that millions live today without realizing it. Napoleon Hill, the master of success philosophy, understood that losing control of money means losing control of the mind. In his research with over 500 successful people, he discovered that financial freedom isn't just a matter of numbers in a bank account. It's a question of mental power, self-discipline, thinking with definite purpose instead of reacting to emotional impulses. But here's the paradox few understand. Most people believe blind faith or luck will solve their money problems. They pray for a financial miracle while continuing to make decisions that sink them deeper into the pit of debt. It's like asking God to stop the rain while you keep watering the garden with a hose. Proverbs and Napoleon Hill teach a different truth. Only conscious discipline, applied prudence, and definite purpose can break the chains of financial servitude. It's not magic, it's not luck, it's not a stroke of fortune. It's the systematic application of eternal principles that have worked for millennia. Did you know the average citizen spends 68% of their life paying debts? That means they work until Thursday of each week just to pay for what they already consumed. Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays are the only days that truly belong to them. And often, not even those. Imagine waking up on a Monday morning knowing that every hour of your work, every drop of your sweat, every minute of your life is building your future, not the future of the bank that lent you money. Imagine making decisions based on your dreams, not your debts. Imagine feeling that sensation of freedom that comes when no one can emotionally blackmail you because you owe nothing to anyone. This isn't an unattainable fantasy. It's the natural result of applying principles that have worked since the world began. Proverbs codified them 3 millennia ago. Napoleon Hill validated them with scientific evidence in the 20th century. And you can apply them today. If you stay until the end of this message, you'll understand exactly how to transform your paychecks into seeds of financial freedom. You'll discover why ancient wisdom remains the most advanced technology for creating real wealth. And most importantly, you'll learn to think like a free person, not like a modern slave who believes debt is normal. The invisible servitude of debt is the most sophisticated form of slavery humanity has invented. Unlike the physical chains of the past, these bonds are invisible, legal, and socially accepted. More dangerously still, most people consider them normal, even necessary. Proverbs 23 verse 7 contains one of the deepest truths about human nature. The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. This isn't merely an economic observation, it's a precise diagnosis of the loss of personal freedom that occurs when we depend on other people's money to live. The word slave in the original text means something deeper than employee or worker. It means someone who has lost the capacity to make autonomous decisions about their own life. When you owe money, your future no longer belongs to you completely. Part of it belongs to whoever lent to you, and that person or institution will have a voice and vote in the most important decisions of your existence. Napoleon Hill understood this connection between financial control and mental power better than any thinker of his era. In Think and Grow Rich, Hill demonstrated that true wealth doesn't begin with money, but with control of thoughts. And it's impossible to control your thoughts when debts control your emotions. Every morning, millions of people wake with a sense of anxiety they can't fully explain. It's the invisible weight of financial obligations that have accumulated like sediment layers at the bottom of a river. Mortgage loans, credit cards, car financing, student loans. Each represents a portion of future that has already been mortgaged. Hill discovered that successful people have a common characteristic. They've learned to delay immediate gratification to achieve long-term benefits. This isn't just financial discipline, it's mental discipline. It's the ability to see beyond the impulse of the moment and consider the consequences of each economic decision. The problem with debt mentality isn't just the money you owe. It's how borrowing changes your way of thinking. When you become accustomed to living with borrowed money, your brain begins to normalize the idea of consuming resources you haven't earned yet. This mentality extends to other areas of life. You start living with borrowed energy, borrowed time, even borrowed happiness. Proverbs teaches that true wisdom consists of seeing the consequences of your actions before executing them. A prudent man sees danger and takes refuge, but the simple keep going and suffer for it. Proverbs 27:14. Debts are exactly that, the damage paid by those who didn't see the consequences of their financial decisions coming. The credit industry has invested trillions of dollars in making borrowing feel easy, comfortable, and even intelligent. They tell you it's leverage, that it's building credit history, that it's taking advantage of opportunities. But Proverbs and Napoleon Hill agree on a fundamental truth. Any decision that compromises your future to satisfy a present impulse is, by definition, imprudent. I'm not saying all credit is malevolent. Hill himself used strategic debt to build business empires, but there's an abysmal difference between using credit as a tool to generate more income and using credit as a substitute for income you don't have. That's why I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel and activate the notification bell. In upcoming videos, we're going to break down principle by principle how to apply the wisdom of Proverbs alongside Napoleon Hill's methodology to build not just financial freedom but mental freedom. Because at the end of the day, it's not about how much money you have, it's about how much freedom you have to decide how to use your time, your energy, and your life. The next 8 chapters will reveal secrets the financial industry doesn't want you to know and that the wise of antiquity understood perfectly. The invisible servitude of debt continued. The borrower is slave to the lender. Proverbs 22, verse 7. Imagine if every morning upon waking you had to ask a stranger whether you could eat what you want for breakfast, wear the clothes you prefer, or leave your house when it pleases you. It would sound absurd, right? However, this is exactly what happens when you live in debt. The difference is that the consultation isn't verbal, it's mathematical. Napoleon Hill discovered in his research with over 500 successful people that mental freedom is the fundamental prerequisite for any form of success. You can't think clearly when your emotional survival depends on decisions outside your control. And when you owe money, a significant portion of your life is controlled by your creditors. Modern servitude works much more subtly than ancient slavery. In the past, chains were physical and visible. Today, chains are legal contracts printed in fine print. Instead of whips, they use interest rates. Instead of cells, they use payment obligations that follow you for decades. Let's consider a practical example that millions of people live without questioning: credit cards. The average citizen has 4 credit cards with a total balance of $8,000. If they pay only the minimum monthly requirement, it will take more than 30 years to liquidate that debt, and they will have paid more than $20,000 in interest. That means for every dollar they spent, they'll end up paying almost $3. But the real cost isn't the $2 extra in interest. The real cost is that for those 30 years, a portion of every paycheck they receive already has an owner before they earn it. Their boss pays them, but part of that money belongs to the bank. It's like working for free 1 or 2 days of each week for 3 decades. Hill taught that the human subconscious doesn't distinguish between reality and vividly represented imagination. When a person knows they owe money, their subconscious interprets that situation as a constant threat to their survival. The result is a permanent state of low-intensity anxiety that affects all their decisions. This financial anxiety manifests in seemingly disconnected ways: difficulty sleeping, irritability without apparent cause, procrastination at work, problems in personal relationships. The human brain can't completely compartmentalize stress. When there's pressure in the financial area, that pressure contaminates all other areas of life. Proverbs understands that debt isn't just an economic problem, it's a character problem. The wicked borrows and does not repay, Psalm 37:21. It's not necessarily talking about malevolent people who deliberately defraud others. It's talking about people who have lost the ability to realistically evaluate their capacity to pay. Consumer culture has normalized living above one's real economic means. Television, social media, constant advertising have created the illusion that the normal standard of living should be financed with money you haven't yet earned. This mentality turns borrowing into a socially acceptable addiction. Like any addiction, dependence on credit begins with small doses that generate temporary relief. A necessary purchase financed over months without interest. A deserved trip paid with a credit card. A medical emergency requiring a personal loan. Each individual decision seems reasonable, but the cumulative effect is the gradual loss of financial autonomy. Hill observed that truly successful people have a distinctive characteristic. They've learned to say no to immediate temptations to say yes to long-term goals. This ability isn't innate, it's consciously developed through repeated practice of mental discipline. The servitude of debt also operates at a social level. When an entire society normalizes borrowing, peer pressure is created that makes living within your means seem abnormal, even stingy. People feel obligated to finance lifestyles they can't sustain to maintain a social appearance that, ironically, is financially destroying them. But here's the revelation that changes everything. Recognizing servitude is the first step toward freedom. Proverbs says, "The truth will set you free," and Napoleon Hill added, "But first it will make you uncomfortable." The discomfort of admitting you've been living as a slave to your debts is the entry price to the territory of financial freedom. So are you ready to discover why easy money is actually the most expensive money that exists? The danger of easy money. Whoever hastens to be rich will not go unpunished. Proverbs 28 verse 20. There's an invisible law governing the financial universe that most people discover too late. Everything that seems easy about money is actually the most costly in the long run. It's as if the cosmos had a perfect accounting system where nothing is truly free, and deferred payments always include compound interest. Napoleon Hill spent years studying why some people build lasting fortunes, while others, who apparently have the same opportunities, end up in financial ruin. His conclusion was revealing. People who build real wealth have learned to distrust any opportunity that promises quick results with little effort. Easy money is like junk food for the financial world. It provides immediate satisfaction, but long-term destroys your economic health. A personal loan that solves your cash flow problem today becomes a bigger cash flow problem next month. A credit card that lets you buy what you want now becomes a chain that prevents you from buying what you need later. Let's consider the psychology behind easy money. When a financial institution offers you instant credit, they're appealing to a fundamental weakness of human nature: our tendency to overvalue present pleasure and undervalue future pain. Economists call this hyperbolic discounting, but Proverbs described it millennia ago with simpler words. The simple consumes all he has, Proverbs 21:20. Credit industry advertising campaigns have perfected the art of making borrowing feel like a personal victory. You're already pre-approved. You deserve to enjoy life. Don't wait, buy it today. Each phrase is carefully designed to make you feel that refusing credit is refusing a unique opportunity, almost as if you were foolish not to take advantage of it. But Hill taught that true opportunities never come with artificial time pressure. Genuine offers can be evaluated calmly, discussed with trusted advisors, and analyzed from all angles. Only financial traps require immediate decisions based on emotional impulses. A perfect example of easy money turned expensive money is pawn shops and payday loans. A person who needs $200 until next Friday can get them immediately, but will typically pay between $25 and $50 for the privilege. That equals an annualized interest rate of more than 300%. To put this in perspective, if that same person invested those extra $25 monthly in a conservative investment fund with 7% annual return, after 20 years, they would have more than $12,000. The difference between paying for easy money and investing, the difference can literally be the difference between poverty and prosperity in retirement. Hill discovered that successful people develop what he called accurate thinking, the ability to distinguish between facts and opinions, between real opportunities and financial mirages. Easy money thrives on mental confusion, emotional desperation, lack of basic financial education. Proverbs specifically warns about the get-rich-quick mentality. A faithful man will be richly blessed, but one eager to get rich will not go unpunished. Proverbs 28:20. It's not just talking about pyramid schemes or fraudulent investments. It's talking about the mentality that seeks results without processes, benefits without efforts, harvests without planting. This easy money mentality manifests in apparently innocent behaviors. Buying a $2,000 television because it's on sale and you can pay for it interest-free over 12 months. The mathematical reality is that if you don't have the $2,000 today, you won't have an extra $170 each month for the next year either. What you're really buying isn't a television. You're buying the illusion that your future income will be significantly better than your current income. The financial industry has methodically identified and exploited every psychological weakness related to money. They know most people confuse wants with needs, confuse plans with realities, confuse optimism with financial analysis. Easy money exists specifically to capitalize on these confusions. Hill taught that true wealth always requires what he called organized effort applied persistently. There are no legitimate shortcuts, no magic formulas, no hidden secrets that allow you to skip the fundamental steps of generating value, saving systematically, and investing intelligently. The paradox is that rejecting easy money today is the surest way to have easy money tomorrow. Every time you say no to an impulsive purchase financed with credit, you're saying yes to having more options in the future. Every time you decide to wait until you can pay for something in cash, you're strengthening the mental muscle that separates the rich from the poor. But there's an even more dangerous enemy than easy money: the lack of discipline to reject it. Are you prepared to discover why discipline is your most powerful shield against financial servitude? Discipline as a shield. Like a city whose walls are broken through is a person who lacks self-control. Proverbs 25, verse 28. In ancient Jerusalem, walls weren't just architectural decoration. They were the difference between survival and annihilation. Without walls, any enemy could enter freely, plunder riches accumulated over generations, and enslave the inhabitants. Proverbs uses this metaphor to describe what happens with a person who hasn't developed financial discipline. They live like a city without defenses, vulnerable to any temptation that presents itself. Napoleon Hill discovered that discipline isn't a characteristic some people have and others don't. It's a skill that can be developed systematically, like strengthening a muscle through progressive exercise. But here's the crucial aspect Hill observed. Financial discipline isn't about depriving yourself of everything. It's about consciously choosing how to spend your limited purchasing power. Financial discipline functions like a system of mental filters that evaluates each spending decision before it becomes an action. The first filter asks, is this a genuine need or an emotional desire? The second filter asks, do I have the money available without compromising other priorities? The third filter asks, does this purchase bring me closer to my long-term goals or take me away from them? Most people skip these filters and buy based on emotional impulses. They see something they like, feel the desire to possess it, and immediately seek ways to rationalize it as an intelligent or necessary purchase. This emotional rational sequence inverts the correct order of financial decision-making. Hill taught that emotions are excellent servants but terrible masters. In the context of money, this means you can use emotions to motivate yourself to reach financial goals, but you should never allow emotions to make financial decisions for you. Discipline is precisely that conscious pause between emotional impulse and financial action. Let's consider a practical example millions face weekly. The decision to eat lunch out versus bringing lunch from home. An average restaurant meal costs $12, while preparing the same meal at home costs approximately $3. The $9 difference doesn't seem significant, but over a work year of 250 days, it equals $2,250. This is where financial discipline demonstrates its real power. Those $2,250 saved annually, invested at 7% for 20 years, become more than $90,000. The disciplined decision to bring lunch for 2 decades can literally finance a person's retirement. But financial discipline doesn't work only through constant denial. Hill discovered that the most successful people develop what he called intelligent self-discipline. They create automatic systems that make correct decisions easier than incorrect decisions. For example, setting up an automatic transfer of 10% of each paycheck to a separate savings account. This simple, systematic discipline eliminates the need to make the conscious decision to save each month. Saving becomes a fixed expense that occurs before you have a chance to spend it on other things. Proverbs understands that discipline isn't just a financial tool, it's a character principle that manifests in all areas of life. Better a patient person than a warrior, a person who controls their temper than one who takes a city. Proverbs 16:32. The person who can control themselves has more real power than one who can control external circumstances. This truth applies perfectly to money. A person who earns $50,000 a year but lives disciplinedly on $40,000 has more real wealth than someone who earns $100,000 a year but spends $110,000. Discipline converts modest income into lasting wealth, while lack of discipline converts high income into growing debt. The marketing industry has invested trillions of dollars studying how to break consumers' financial discipline. They know exactly which colors, sounds, aromas, and words deactivate rational thinking and activate purchase impulses. Supermarkets place high-margin products at eye level, use music that slows your pace so you spend more time exposed to temptations, and place impulse buy items next to cash registers. Hill taught that recognizing these manipulations is the first step to becoming immune to them. When you understand that every purchase decision is a battle between your conscious discipline and psychological techniques designed to bypass your rationality, you can mentally prepare for those battles. A practical strategy Hill recommended is what he called the 24-hour rule. Never make unplanned purchases over $100 without waiting at least a full day. This pause allows emotions to calm and reason to objectively evaluate whether the purchase really adds value to your life. Financial discipline also requires brutal honesty about your current spending patterns. Hill insisted you can't improve what you don't measure. Keeping a detailed record of every dollar you spend for at least 1 month reveals behavior patterns that normally operate below the level of consciousness. Most people are surprised to discover how much they spend in categories they consider minor. Coffee bought outside home, phone apps, small online purchases, convenience foods. These small categories frequently represent 20 or 30% of total monthly spending. But what happens when discipline finds its perfect complement? Prudence that acts as an emergency brake in the most important financial decisions of your life. Prudence as an emergency brake. The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. Proverbs 22 verse 3. Imagine driving a car at 75 miles per hour down a mountain without brakes. For a moment, the speed might feel exciting, even liberating. But when that sharp curve appears that you couldn't see from a distance, the absence of brakes becomes a death sentence. Financial prudence works exactly like your economic life's brake system. It's not the most exciting thing, but it's what keeps you alive. Napoleon Hill observed that truly successful people share a characteristic that initially seems contradictory. They are simultaneously bold in their long-term visions and extremely conservative in their daily risk decisions. This combination isn't accidental. It's the result of cultivating prudence as second nature. Financial prudence isn't the same as fear of money or pathological stinginess. It's practical wisdom that carefully evaluates the potential consequences of each financial decision before committing. While discipline helps you resist temptations, prudence helps you anticipate dangers that haven't yet materialized. Let's consider a situation millions of people face: the decision to buy a house. The real estate industry, banks, and even well-meaning family members repeat the mantra that renting is throwing money away and that it's always a good time to buy. The social pressure to be a homeowner is so intense that many people make mortgage decisions that financially enslave them for 30 years. Prudence asks uncomfortable questions that emotion prefers to ignore. What happens if I lose my job 6 months after signing the mortgage? What happens if real estate values in my area drop 20%? What happens if I need to move for family or professional reasons? Do I have enough savings to cover not just the down payment, but also 6 months of emergency expenses after the purchase? Hill taught that successful people always plan for multiple scenarios, not just the optimistic scenario. They develop what he called accurate thinking, the ability to separate verifiable facts from emotional hopes. In the real estate context, this means objectively analyzing your stable income versus your variable income, your fixed expenses versus your discretionary expenses, and your real payment capacity versus your theoretical payment capacity. Prudence also recognizes that professional salespeople are trained to create artificial urgency that bypasses careful thinking. This offer expires today. There are other interested buyers. Prices are going up next month. Each of these phrases is designed to make you feel you don't have time to carefully evaluate the decision. But Proverbs teaches exactly the opposite. The plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty. Proverbs 21:5. Important financial decisions require time, research, and consultation with people who have no economic interest in your decision. A perfect example of applied prudence is the concept of an emergency fund. Prudence recognizes that life is inherently unpredictable. Jobs are lost, illnesses appear, cars break down, appliances fail. Having between 3 and 6 months of basic expenses saved in an easily accessible account isn't pessimism. It's mature realism. Hill discovered that financially successful people never put all their eggs in one basket, no matter how attractive that basket appears. Prudence diversifies not just investments, but income sources, professional skills, and geographic locations. It's the difference between surfing the waves of economic uncertainty and being crushed by them. Prudence also understands the difference between being able to afford something and being able to allow something. You might be able to afford the payments on a $40,000 car, but you can't allow it if those payments prevent you from saving for retirement, educating your children, or maintaining an emergency fund. Prudence always considers opportunity cost. What other options are you eliminating when you choose a specific option? Let's consider credit cards from the perspective of prudence. The credit industry presents cards as tools of convenience and security, and they can be if used with absolute prudence, paying the full balance each month, never charging more than 30% of the available limit, and immediately canceling any card that generates the temptation to spend money you don't have. But prudence recognizes a disturbing statistical truth. The average citizen who uses credit cards spends between 12 and 18% more than the average citizen who uses only cash. The psychological ease of not seeing physical money leaving your wallet reduces mental resistance to spending. Prudence takes this human weakness into account and adjusts behavior accordingly. Hill taught that true prudence requires intellectual humility, recognizing that your brain is subject to the same limitations and biases that affect all other human beings. You're not immune to marketing techniques. You're not immune to emotional decisions. You're not immune to overestimating your future income and underestimating your future expenses. This prudent humility translates into practical financial protection systems. For example, never going shopping when you're emotionally upset, hungry, or stressed, making specific lists before going to stores and buying only what's on the list, setting automatic limits on debit cards to prevent large impulsive spending. Prudence also recognizes that most financial emergencies are actually predictable events that simply weren't anticipated. Cars require periodic maintenance, appliances have limited lifespans, insurance increases in price, medical emergencies happen. Systematically saving for these predictable surprises is basic prudence. But perhaps the most powerful aspect of financial prudence is its ability to turn problems into opportunities. When others are desperate to sell during economic crises, the prudent person who has maintained liquid reserves can buy quality assets at reduced prices. Prudence doesn't just protect, it also positions for future growth. Hill observed that financial crises separate people into two categories: those who become more cautious after suffering losses, and those who become more prudent. Caution is fear disguised. Prudence is applied wisdom. Caution paralyzes. Prudence protects and prospers. But what happens when you combine discipline and prudence with a force that seems contradictory to saving? Generosity. Are you ready to discover why giving can be the most powerful strategy for receiving? Generosity as a flow of prosperity. Give, and it will be given to you. Her good measure, pressed down, shaken together and running over, will be poured into your lap. Luke 6, verse 38. In the world of personal finance, there's a paradox that defies all apparent logic. The most generous people tend to be the most prosperous, not despite their generosity, but precisely because of it. This isn't magic or mystical thinking. It's the result of deep psychological and economic principles that Napoleon Hill studied extensively in his research on wealth creation. Proverbs teaches this fundamental truth. One person gives freely, yet gains even more. Another withholds unduly but comes to poverty. Proverbs 11:24. This statement seems to contradict financial common sense, but Hill discovered it contains one of the most powerful laws for creating lasting abundance. Financial generosity works like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it becomes. But we're not talking about imprudent generosity that compromises your economic stability. We're talking about systematic, planned, and strategic generosity that forms an integral part of your monthly budget. Let's consider the concept of tithing, frequently mentioned in Proverbs, allocating 10% of your before-tax income to help others. From a purely mathematical perspective, this seems to reduce your saving capacity by 10%. But Hill discovered that people who practice tithing consistently develop an abundance mentality that generates more income than they sacrifice through their generosity. How does this apparently magical mechanism work? The answer lies in money psychology and social networks. When you give consistently, your brain subconsciously interprets that you have enough money to share. This subconscious interpretation eliminates the scarcity mentality that paralyzes many people in their professional careers and investment decisions. Scarcity mentality manifests in behaviors that sabotage financial growth, negotiating salaries timidly, avoiding calculated risks that could generate greater return, clinging to mediocre jobs for fear of not finding something better, and rejecting networking opportunities because you have nothing to offer. In contrast, the abundance mentality that systematic generosity develops manifests in behaviors that accelerate financial growth, negotiating confidently because you know you bring value, taking calculated risks because you don't operate from fear, changing jobs strategically to advance your career, and building solid professional networks because you genuinely seek ways to help others. Hill discovered that the most successful people in his research had a common characteristic. They had developed what he called a service mentality. They didn't see their careers as ways to extract maximum money possible from the market, but as ways to contribute maximum value possible to others. This fundamental perspective completely changes the dynamic of how you generate income. When your primary motivation is to serve and contribute value, you naturally seek ways to improve your skills, expand your knowledge, and create innovative solutions. These activities make you more valuable in the job market, which translates to higher income. It's a virtuous circle. You give more, become more valuable, earn more, can give more. Generosity also builds something no amount of money can buy: genuine social capital. When you systematically help others without immediate expectations of return, you build a network of people who know your character, trust your integrity, and are willing to open doors when opportunities arise. Let's consider a practical example: allocating $100 monthly to help someone going through financial difficulties. In 10 years, you'll have spent $12,000 on generosity. But during those same 10 years, the abundance mentality you developed allowed you to negotiate 3 salary increases you wouldn't have sought with scarcity mentality, change to a better company you wouldn't have considered, and launch a side project you wouldn't have attempted. The cumulative financial impact of these changes can be hundreds of thousands of dollars. Proverbs understands that generosity isn't just an external practice, it's an internal transformation that affects how you think about money, relationships, and opportunities. A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. Proverbs 11:25. It's not talking about a direct commercial exchange, but about a character transformation that attracts prosperity. Hill observed that generosity also develops what he called accurate thinking applied to personal finances. When you give money systematically, you become more aware of exactly how much money enters and leaves your life. This improved awareness translates to better financial decisions in all areas. The practice of generosity also forces you to become more efficient with your personal expenses. If you've committed 10% of your income to help others, you need to make the remaining 90% cover all your needs and savings goals. This artificial restriction frequently results in eliminating superfluous expenses you didn't even notice before. There's also an aspect of generosity that transcends the purely economic: the impact on your emotional and mental well-being. Hill discovered that people who practice systematic generosity report significantly higher levels of personal satisfaction, life purpose, and optimism about the future. These positive emotional states translate to better professional performance, better relationships, and smarter financial decisions. Intelligent generosity also includes giving time and skills, not just money, mentoring young professionals in your area of expertise, offering free consulting to non-profit organizations, teaching basic financial skills in your community. These activities expand your professional network, develop your leadership skills, and frequently open unexpected career opportunities. But generosity must be balanced with prudence. Proverbs also warns, "The simple believe anything, but the prudent give thought to their steps." Proverbs 14:15. Being generous doesn't mean being naive. You must verify that your help is really helping, that you're not facilitating destructive behaviors, and that your generosity isn't compromising your own financial stability. Hill taught that true generosity always seeks to empower others, not create dependence. Instead of simply giving money, seek ways to help people develop skills that allow them to generate their own income. Teach fishing instead of just giving fish. Systematic generosity also prepares you psychologically to handle prosperity when it arrives. People who haven't practiced giving when they had little frequently become stingy when they have much. In contrast, people who have developed the habit of generosity can handle increased wealth without it negatively changing their character. But how do you maintain this abundance and generosity mentality when facing the inevitable ups and downs of financial life? The answer lies in the power of consistency and small steps. Consistency and the power of small steps. Whoever gathers crops in summer is a prudent child, but whoever sleeps during harvest is a disgraceful child. Proverbs 10, verse 5. There's a force in the universe more powerful than intelligence, more effective than talent, and more valuable than luck: consistency applied systematically over time. Napoleon Hill discovered that all lasting fortunes are the result of small, correct actions repeated consistently over years, not spectacular strokes of luck that happen overnight. The mathematics of consistency defies human intuition. Our brains are programmed to value immediate results and underestimate the power of compound growth. But Proverbs understands this fundamental truth. Through laziness, the rafters sag. Because of idle hands, The house leaks. Ecclesiastes 10:18. It's not dramatic crises that destroy financial stability. It's small negligences accumulated day after day. Let's consider the transformative power of saving just $5 daily. For most people, $5 is what they spend on coffee, a snack, or a mobile app without thinking twice. It seems an insignificant amount, but $5 daily for 30 years, invested at 7% annually, becomes more than $200,000. This mathematical transformation illustrates why Hill insisted that small, consistent steps overcome large, sporadic efforts. The person who saves $1,000 once a year for 30 years ends up with much less money than the person who saves $85 each month for the same period, even though the annual total is similar. The difference is in the power of compound interest, working continuously versus working at intervals. Financial consistency requires what Hill called sustained application of organized effort. It's not about making heroic sacrifices occasionally, but about establishing systems that work automatically without requiring daily emotional decisions. The most disciplined person in the world will eventually have a bad day where willpower fails. Automated systems work independently of emotional state. Proverbs teaches that consistency is a characteristic of mature wisdom. The heart of the discerning acquires knowledge, for the ears of the wise seek it out. Proverbs 18:15. The word acquires indicates a gradual process, not an instant revelation. Financial wisdom develops through the accumulated experience of making correct decisions repeatedly, not through reading a book or attending a seminar. A practical example of transformative consistency is the concept of paying yourself first. Instead of saving what's left after all monthly expenses, you establish an automatic transfer of 10% of each paycheck to a savings account before paying anything else. This system guarantees that saving happens consistently, regardless of what other expenses appear during the month. Hill discovered that successful people develop what he called organized persistence, the ability to maintain focus on long-term goals despite distractions, discouragements, and temporary setbacks. In the financial context, this means continuing to save and invest systematically, even when markets are volatile, when unexpected expenses arise, or when others are spending ostentatiously. Consistency also applies to continuous financial education. Reading one book about personal finance each quarter, listening to an educational podcast weekly, or attending a seminar annually may seem trivial compared to the amount of financial information you need to master. But over 10 years, this constant education places you in the top 10% of financial sophistication of the population. Proverbs directly connects consistency with prosperity. Those who work their land will have abundant food, but those who chase fantasies will have their fill of poverty. Proverbs 28:19. The phrase "work their land" implies repetitive, seasonal, consistent work. You can't plant once and harvest for decades. You must sow, cultivate, and harvest in constant cycles. This agricultural metaphor applies perfectly to personal finance. You can't make one correct financial decision and expect it to produce results throughout your life. You must sow correct decisions consistently. Save each month, educate yourself each quarter, review and adjust your investments each year. Consistency also develops what Hill called applied faith, confidence that correct principles applied systematically will produce desired results, even when those results aren't immediately visible. This faith isn't blind. It's based on mathematical evidence proven over centuries of economic history. Consider the psychological challenge of consistency in a world designed for instant gratification. Social media, advertising, consumer culture constantly bombard your brain with messages that you should have everything now, enjoy now, live now. Financial consistency requires resisting these pressures and maintaining focus on benefits that won't materialize until years or decades in the future. Hill taught that consistency is strengthened through what he called clear definition of purpose. When you know exactly why you're saving, for your children's education, for your retirement, to start a business, to have financial freedom, it's much easier to resist the temptations of immediate gratification. Consistency also requires celebrating small victories along the way. reaching your first $1,000 saved, paying off your first credit card completely, completing your first year without new debt. These celebrations psychologically reinforce correct behaviors and give you emotional energy to continue. But there's a subtle enemy of consistency that specifically attacks those who are progressing financially: vanity disguised as success. Are you prepared to discover how to distinguish between genuine needs and ego-driven desires? Vanity versus necessity. Vanity of vanities, says the teacher. Vanity of vanities. All is vanity. Ecclesiastes 1, verse 2. In the modern world, the line between necessity and vanity has become so blurred that millions of people destroy their financial future, buying things they believe they need, but which actually only feed their ego. Napoleon Hill discovered that one of the most marked differences between people who build lasting wealth and those who remain in constant financial struggle is their ability to brutally distinguish between what they really need and what they simply desire to impress others. Proverbs addresses this distinction with surgical clarity. Do not exalt yourself in the king's presence, and do not claim a place among his great men. It is better for him to say to you, "Come up here," than for him to humiliate you before his nobles. Proverbs 25:6-7. In modern financial terms, this means don't spend money trying to appear to have an economic status you haven't genuinely achieved. Financial vanity operates much more subtly than simple exhibitionism. It's not just about buying luxury cars or expensive watches. Vanity infiltrates apparently rational decisions, choosing the most expensive apartment you can afford according to the bank, buying brand-name clothing because it's an investment in your professional image, or financing elaborate vacations because you need to rest. Hill observed that financial vanity frequently disguises itself as career strategy. People rationalize excessive spending on clothing, cars, or expensive restaurants as networking investments or professional image building. But Hill's research demonstrated that truly successful people are admired for their results and character, not for their material possessions. Consider the automobile, which for many people represents the second largest purchase of their life after housing. The genuine need is reliable transportation from point A to point B. Everything else, brand, model, year, features, are variables that reflect vanity, not necessity. A 5-year-old used car can satisfy the transportation need for a fraction of the cost of a new car. The mathematical difference is devastating for long-term wealth. A person who buys reliable used cars throughout their life versus a person who always buys new cars can accumulate a wealth difference of more than $500,000 over 40 years, assuming they invest the monthly payment difference. But the most costly vanity isn't in large purchases. It's in the inflated lifestyle that gradually becomes normalized. Hill called this lifestyle inflation, the tendency to increase spending proportionally to any income increase. A person receives a 20% raise and immediately finds ways to spend that extra 20% on improvements to their quality of life. Proverbs specifically warns against this mentality. Do not wear yourself out to get rich. Do not trust your own cleverness. Cast but a glance at riches and they are gone, for they will surely sprout wings and fly off to the sky like an eagle. Proverbs 23:4-5. The key phrase is, do not wear yourself out to get rich. Don't seek to appear wealthy when you don't genuinely possess wealth. Vanity operates through constant social comparison. Social media has exponentially intensified this phenomenon. You constantly see edited and carefully selected versions of others' lives: exotic vacations, expensive restaurants, new clothes, luxury experiences. Your brain subconsciously interprets these images as normal and pressures your spending behavior to match these appearances. Hill taught that truly prosperous people develop what he called independence of opinion, the ability to make decisions based on their own values and goals regardless of what others think or do. This independence is especially crucial in financial decisions where social pressure can literally destroy your economic future. A practical exercise for distinguishing vanity from necessity is what Hill called true motive analysis. Before any significant purchase, ask yourself honestly, am I buying this because it genuinely improves my life in a practical way, or because I want others to think something specific about me? Does this purchase bring me closer to my long-term financial goals, or take me away from them. Vanity also manifests in resistance to buying used, generic, or less prestigious when these options satisfy the real need identically. Buying generic versus brand name medications, choosing economical versus gourmet supermarkets, buying functional versus designer clothing. In each case, the function is fulfilled equally, but the ego prefers the more expensive option. Proverbs understands that vanity isn't just a financial problem, it's a character problem that affects life's entire perspective. Pride brings a person low, but the lowly in spirit gain honor. Proverbs 29:23. The person who needs external validation through material possessions is in a psychological prison that no amount of purchases can liberate. Hill discovered that financially successful people have learned to derive satisfaction from progress toward goals, not from impressing others with possessions. Their self-esteem is connected to their personal growth, their contributions to others, and their advancement toward financial independence. Material possessions are tools to facilitate these goals, not ends in themselves. Vanity also operates in time, the tendency to spend present money to create a temporary image versus investing present money to create future security. The vain person buys expensive experiences to feel successful temporarily. The prudent person invests in skills, education, and assets that generate permanently increased purchasing power. But what is the true purpose of building wealth once you've distinguished between vanity and necessity? What's money for when you no longer need it to impress anyone? The true purpose of wealth. Honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your crops. Proverbs 3, verse 9. After decades studying the most financially successful people of his era, Napoleon Hill reached a conclusion that surprised even him. Those who built lasting fortunes never had money itself as their primary objective. Money was simply the tool that allowed them to fulfill a purpose greater than themselves. Without this transcendent purpose, even the largest fortunes eventually faded or lost their meaning. Proverbs teaches that wealth without purpose becomes a burden. Dishonest money dwindles away, but whoever gathers money little by little makes it grow. Proverbs 13:11. The phrase dishonest money refers specifically to money accumulated to feed the ego or impress others. This type of wealth not only doesn't last, it actively destroys the character of whoever possesses it. In contrast, wealth built with defined purpose becomes a multiplying force that benefits not only the owner, but ever-widening circles of people. Hill discovered that truly prosperous people always see their wealth as a trust. They are temporary stewards of resources that ultimately belong to the broader human community. This shift in perspective, from owner to steward, completely transforms the psychological relationship with money. Instead of generating anxiety about losing it, or greed about accumulating it, purposeful wealth generates responsibility about using it wisely and gratitude for the opportunity to create positive impact. Let's consider some legitimate purposes for building wealth that transcend immediate personal benefit. Ensuring quality education for your children, caring for elderly parents with dignity, supporting charitable causes that alleviate human suffering, creating jobs that allow others to prosper, or simply achieving the financial freedom that allows you to make decisions based on values instead of economic necessities. Hill observed that people with clear purpose for their wealth tend to make smarter financial decisions because they have a strong emotional why that justifies the required discipline. It's much easier to resist an impulsive purchase when you know that money is destined for your daughter's college education. It's much easier to work extra hours when you know the additional income brings you closer to the freedom to change careers. Proverbs directly connects wealth's purpose with its sustainability. Gray hair is a crown of splendor. It is attained in the way of righteousness. Proverbs 16:31. The crown of splendor in old age includes financial security, but also the satisfaction of having used resources in a way that honored principles higher than immediate personal benefit. This perspective also resolves one of personal finance's most frustrating paradoxes: how much is enough? Without clear purpose, there's never enough money, because financial anxiety isn't really related to specific amounts, it's related to the sense of control and security. But when your wealth has defined purpose, enough becomes a quantifiable and achievable goal. Hill taught that purpose also protects against the corruption that can accompany financial success. People who accumulate money without transcendent purpose frequently develop what he called money sickness, obsession with accumulating for accumulation's sake, paranoia about losing what they've gained, and loss of empathy toward those who have less. In contrast, people with clear purpose for their wealth maintain perspective on money's relative value. They understand that money is a powerful means to certain ends, but a terrible end in itself. This perspective allows them to enjoy their prosperity without being enslaved by it. Purpose also multiplies wealth's impact beyond its direct monetary value. A person who uses their financial prosperity to mentor young entrepreneurs can generate economic value many times greater than the original amount of money they invested in time and resources. Purpose's multiplier effect converts individual wealth into community wealth. Proverbs teaches that wealth's true purpose always includes benefiting others. Whoever oppresses the poor shows contempt for their maker, but whoever is kind to the needy honors God. Proverbs 14:31. This doesn't mean you must give away all your money, but it does mean your prosperity should consciously include ways to bless others. Hill discovered that financially successful people inevitably develop what he called social consciousness, understanding that their individual success is interconnected with the well-being of the broader community in which they live. This consciousness translates to more ethical business decisions, more sustainable investments, and more thoughtful use of resources. Purpose also provides clarity about when and how to transmit wealth to the next generation. Families that maintain prosperity across multiple generations always have clear purposes that transcend the individual benefit of any specific family member. Wealth becomes a family tool for fulfilling a family mission. Finally, purpose resolves the question of what to do with wealth when you no longer need it for personal necessities. Without purpose, elderly people frequently become stingy, not because they need the money, but because they don't know what else to do with it. With purpose, elderly people can experience the deep satisfaction of seeing their wealth continue creating positive impact long after they're no longer here. But now that we've explored all these principles, the crucial question arises: how do you apply them practically in your daily life? Practical application and call to action. After exploring these 8 fundamental principles that connect the millennial wisdom of Proverbs with Napoleon Hill's scientific research, we arrive at a crystal clear truth. Financial freedom isn't the result of complicated techniques or secret strategies. It's the natural result of consistently applying 3 central principles that have worked for millennia: discipline, prudence, and generosity. Discipline gives you the power to say no to temptations that sabotage your financial future. Prudence gives you the wisdom to anticipate consequences before they materialize. Generosity gives you the abundance mentality that attracts greater opportunities for prosperity. These 3 principles, applied systematically, are more powerful than any investment strategy, more effective than any get-rich-quick scheme, and more reliable than any temporary economic trend. But here's the question that will define your financial future. Will you continue being a slave to debt and victim of your impulses, or will you apply at least one of these Proverbs principles this week? The answer to this question doesn't require a dramatic transformation of your entire life. It requires only the decision to begin where you are, with what you have, applying one principle at a time. If your greatest challenge is lack of discipline, start by establishing an automatic transfer of $25 per week to a separate savings account. If your greatest weakness is lack of prudence, start by keeping a detailed record of every dollar you spend for 1 month. If your greatest limitation is scarcity mentality, start by allocating $10 monthly to help someone who needs financial support. Visualize for a moment what your life would be like exactly 1 year from now if you applied these principles consistently. Instead of waking with anxiety about money, you'd wake with clarity about your priorities. Instead of feeling controlled by your debts, you'd feel the power that comes from controlling your financial decisions. Instead of living paycheck to paycheck, you'd live with the security that accumulated savings and systematically growing investments provide. Now extend that visualization 5 years into the future. If you maintain consistent application of discipline, prudence, and generosity for 5 years, you won't just have transformed your financial situation, you'll have transformed your character. You'll have become the type of person who makes decisions based on principles, not emotions. The type of person others seek for financial advice because you've demonstrated practical wisdom in your own life. The principles we've explored aren't abstract theories. They're practical tools you can begin implementing immediately. The difference between where you are financially today and where you could be in 5 years isn't determined by your current income level, your age, or your past financial history. It's determined by the decisions you make starting today. One decision at a time, one day at a time, one principle at a time. Proverbs and Napoleon Hill agree on a fundamental truth. You don't need perfect conditions to begin applying correct principles. You simply need the willingness to start where you are and the consistency to continue even when progress seems slow. Time will pass anyway. The question is whether that time will work for you or against you, depending on the decisions you make starting now. If this message has resonated with you, if you've recognized the truth in these eternal principles, if you're ready to transform your relationship with money and build genuine financial freedom, I need you to take 3 specific actions right now. First, write in the comments exactly these words. I choose the wisdom of Proverbs over debt. Don't modify the phrase. Don't add additional explanations. Simply write those 8 words. This apparently simple act is actually a public commitment to principles that have transformed lives for millennia. When you publicly declare your choice, you activate psychological forces that help you maintain that decision even when facing temptations. Second, share this video with at least one person you know who's trapped in bills, living paycheck to paycheck, or feeling hopeless about their financial situation. That person could be a family member, friend, co-worker, or someone on your social networks. Don't do it to preach or judge. Do it because you genuinely care about their well-being and want to offer them practical hope based on proven principles. When you share knowledge that can transform lives, you're applying the generosity principle we've discussed. You're planting seeds of prosperity in others' lives, and those seeds will eventually produce fruit that benefits not only that person, but their family, their community, and future generations who will benefit from their improved financial decisions. Third, and this is most important, subscribe to this channel right now and activate notifications by pressing the bell. Why is this crucial? Because the video you're watching is only the first step in a complete financial transformation journey. In upcoming videos, we're going to delve deeper into each of these principles with specific strategies, practical tools, and detailed examples you can implement immediately. In the next video, titled The Proverbs Secret Banks Don't Want You to Know, we're going to reveal exactly how to apply ancient wisdom to systematically eliminate debt, even if you currently feel overwhelmed by financial obligations. Napoleon Hill discovered specific techniques that financial institutions prefer you remain ignorant of because educated clients are less profitable clients. We're also preparing a complete series on the 10 financial commandments of Proverbs, where each episode will explore a specific principle with contemporary examples, precise mathematical calculations, and step-by-step action plans you can customize according to your particular situation. But here's the reality. If you don't subscribe and activate notifications, you'll probably never see those videos. YouTube's algorithm is designed to show new content to people who demonstrate real commitment to the channel. Your subscription isn't just a statistic. It's your entry ticket to a community of people applying these principles and transforming their financial lives. Moreover, when you subscribe, you become part of something bigger than your own individual financial transformation. You join a movement of people rejecting the modern slavery of debt and choosing the freedom that comes from living according to eternal principles. Your subscription sends a clear signal to the universe that you're committed to your growth, not just interested in entertainment. Remember, information without application is just entertainment. Principles without practice are just philosophy. But when you combine correct knowledge with consistent action, you create the exact formula Napoleon Hill identified in every truly prosperous person he studied during his 25-year research. Don't let this moment of inspiration fade without taking concrete action. Statistics show that 97% of people who consume educational content never implement what they learn. Don't be part of that statistic. Be part of the 3% that transforms knowledge into results. Write, "I choose the wisdom of Proverbs over debt" in the comments right now. Share this video with someone who needs this hope. Subscribe and activate notifications to receive the advanced strategies we're preparing for you. Your financial future begins with the decision you make at this moment. Proverbs says, "In their hearts humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps." Proverbs 16:9. You've found the correct path. Now let us help you establish each step of the journey toward your complete financial freedom. Don't wait until tomorrow. Don't postpone until next month. Don't say, "when I have time." The perfect time to begin applying correct principles is exactly now. We'll see you in the comments, we'll see you sharing this message of hope, and we'll see you in the next video where we'll reveal even more powerful secrets of ancient financial wisdom applied to modern economic challenges. Your financial transformation begins now. Welcome to the 3% that actually applies what they learn.